Joining us now by phone, 4 floors up, Joe Morrissey, Fightin' Joe of the Joe Morrissey Show. Joe, good to have you with us.
John, it's great to be on the John Fredericks Show and keep up the great work of keeping an eye on the General Assembly, keeping that transparency going. Good for you, mate.
I got to get your view on guns, Joe. I mean, I know we're you and I are not always on this.
You don't have to ask it defensively. Listen. You know me, John.
Yes, Joe.
I call it the way I see it.
Yes.
No apologies necessary. You ask me what you have to ask me, okay?
What did you think of the governor's press conference, essentially shutting the square down, putting a fence around it, one entry for 100,000 people, which is ridiculous, shutting down, that shuts effectively down all the streets, and then he says there was a threats of a drone strike, and VCDL members taking over the government, storming the Capitol, and taking the government over like the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, which I thought was about the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life.
John, I'm still absorbing all that. I got to tell you, I was on a subcommittee last night, Judiciary, that went for 5 hours, and I got a text from a colleague, a lawyer colleague, who said the governor has declared a state of emergency. And I said, what are you talking about? You know, and then I showed the text to a couple of my colleagues on the committee, and they said, that's right. John, I'll just say this. It took me by complete surprise. Here's how I feel. The Capitol Square belongs to the people. If there's, you've got to keep things safe and protect them, but if 100,000 people show up, let's try to make it available so that we can, these people can have their voice. Listen, John, I'm sorry about the noise. It's easy to listen to voices that you agree with. That's the easy part. But listening and giving credence and respect to voices that you don't agree is a little bit more difficult. There are a lot of people coming in that don't agree with respect to the gun control or too much that I may not agree with, but here's what I do agree with 100%. They have a voice, and they should be listened to.
I don't know, Joe. I'm very suspect of this. Instead of having a rally, I think people should come. Look, here's what I've been saying the whole week. Leave your gun home, bring a friend, because you have the right of assembly. You want to be heard. You want your voice to be part of government. Come to the rally and be heard. Leave your gun home because it's a spectacle. You don't need it, right? Everybody knows you have a gun if you're there. So, or you might want to have one. So that doesn't matter to me. But I think the governor declaring a state of emergency, telling us that there were credible threats that VCDL was going to take over the government, storm the Capitol, and run, Virginia government, throw everybody out, and then there was going to be a drone attack. I mean, come on, come on, Joe. I mean, I don't know what intel they've got out there. Some moron puts up a Facebook post, and so we're shutting down this square. I don't see it. Maybe there is something there, but I don't see it.
John, I taught constitutional law. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe with the free speech, the right to assemble. I don't know if you have uttered that expression before. It sounds like you have. Leave your gun home and bring a friend. Actually, I like that.
Thank you.
I like it. I don't know if it's the first time you said it, but I agree. So, listen, John, we've got to treat folks equally. If there were 100,000 folks coming down to support the Equal Rights Amendment, which passed out of the Senate yesterday, you got to ask, would those people be given a forum? I think they would, and they should be.
Sure.
With regard, you mentioned Van Cleve. Listen, he and I don't agree on a lot of issues, but he came to my office. I respect him. I respect his views, and we just agree to disagree on some things. Do I think he and his group should have a opportunity, a forum to express their views. You bet I do. You bet I do.
Joe, I gotta bounce to get out, but I just got to ask you one more quick thing. What is the thing, your top priority thing you're working on today, Joe Morrissey?
There was a red flag law that I think you're familiar with.
Yes.
It was getting ready to pass yesterday, and I expressed to my caucus that I could not support it because it trampled on people's Fourth Amendment right, the right to be free from an unreasonable search and seizure. So it was getting ready to get passed. We took a recess, and we went in, and I explained to the caucus that the red flag law as written, while very laudable, it would have allowed the police to come into the house and seize a gun without any nexus between PC that a gun was there and probable cause that there was indicia of criminal activity. I said I could not support that, and I explained my position to the caucus. One by one, they agreed, you're right, so it was passed by, and I need to take that language out of the bill so that the police cannot get a search warrant to come into your house.
Joe, I tell you what, great work on that.
And in other words, I'm working on that this morning. That's why I'm not down there in your office trying to get that bill in better shape.
Well, look, I want to thank you for that, Joe, because I think we launched a revolutionary war in 1775 over that same issue, right? No-knock warrants not signed by a judge. People just come in and do a search. So I think you're onto something there.
Let me just stop you there. The warrant, it would have been signed by a judge, but there's got to be a nexus between a gun being there and criminal activity, not a nexus between a gun being there and the person is suspected of being in the throes of a mental health crisis. Let me give an analogy. In World War II, we interned tens of thousands of Japanese Americans because under the premise that it was more important to protect our country. But we trampled on people's rights. You can't do that.
Right.
All right? You can't do that. And so this warrant, although it was signed by a judge, it would not have been based on probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed or was in the throes. So anyway, that's my goal today, to work on that legislation.
All right, Joe, I got to bounce. Joe Morrissey, thanks for being with us. Senator Joe Morrissey, the Fighting Joe Show coming up here, hosted by me today, 10 to 12 at the Capitol.
John, it's always a pleasure to be on the John Fredericks Show. Keep up the good work and keep that transparency window crystal clean, okay? People have got to look into government. Bye.
Joe, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's not easy to do.